Those of you who don't know me, I'm Chair of Electrical Engineering and Electrical Engineering Technology Programs at Penn State Harrisburg. But I'm also serving as a member of Middletown Borough Authority, dealing with the treatment plant down the street a couple of blocks from here. The idea came talking with some of the students that we have on campus that it would be nice to have the potential candidates, or not the potential, the candidates for mayor of Middletown on campus. The biggest reason is because this is the person who deals with the college, relationship between the college and Middletown. It has a linkage to the mayor serving as the ex officio member of the Penn State Harrisburg Board of Directors. Now, I'm proud to present to find candidates, Jim Curry and Bob Giffler. Of course, on Tuesday would be where the election will happen in town, and after that we'll know which one is going to be the next mayor of Middletown. And then I've also recruited Professor Bev Sigler as the moderator of this event. She is from the program Public Affairs, School of Public Affairs, of course, so that makes her much more qualified than myself to begin with in order to conduct this meeting. Now, we did have to have a student group sponsor this event because this falls under campaigning laws and so forth. The college cannot sponsor this without the support of a student organization. So I would like to thank the student officers of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. If you don't mind, at least raise your hand so that everybody sees you. They're the sponsoring students for this event. In order to get this event going, we had to get permission from a number of entities on campus. That's usual in college environment, the Student Activities Office, and all the other support services in order to get events going. Anyway, thanks, Professor Sigler, and the rest is all yours and the candidates.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, A.D. This was kind of impromptu for me. I just heard about this a couple days ago and got to write the questions that we're going to ask the candidates. And just about 10 minutes ago, I showed them the questions for the first time, so they had a little bit of lead time. And what we're going to do is have a set of 9 questions. Hopefully we'll try to get through all of them. And then we'll open it up to the public because you probably have better questions than I came up with, especially if you live in Middletown. And each candidate will introduce himself first and tell us a little bit about his experience, his skills, and his expertise that makes him ready to be mayor of Middletown. Then we'll start with Jim and on the even questions, so question 2, and then we'll rotate back and forth. Each mayoral candidate will have 2 or 3 minutes if they're the first one to speak, and then the other one can respond for a couple minutes. And then we move to the next question, and the next, and the next. And we are saving the audience questions until the end. And hopefully we'll have plenty of time for that. So let's just get started. Jim.
Thank you. First of all, thank all of you for attending. Professor Sigler for being our moderator, Penn State for organizing this, the Chancellor. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to present myself to the student body as a mayoral candidate here in Middletown, and it's an honor to be here. I grew up in Slatington, Pennsylvania, which is a town not so different from Middletown. It's about the same size in terms of population. After Middletown, I attended Lebanon Valley College in Anvil, Pennsylvania, and then attended law school at Widener University School of Law in Harrisburg. After law school, I initially had planned to move back to Slatington, where I grew up with my father, but unfortunately the job market was a bit dry, and I found myself back in Harrisburg. So once I got my current position at a local law firm in Harrisburg, I needed a place to live. And we searched high and low, and that perfect place ended up being Middletown. I have lived here since October of 2010, and I think during that short 3-year period, I have come to understand that the place that you make home ultimately is the place that you should have a vested interest in the future of that location. And Middletown, I think, is a wonderful town. It's the oldest town in Dauphin County. I was drawn to the historic aspects of the town, and my wife and I had our firstborn in May. So that being said, I think that looking forward to the future, we need to make sure the community is a bright one. I plan to be here for the rest of my life, so I think that's why I have an interest in this position. I want to have the best benefit for the community. I have their interests at heart, and I look forward to making it a better place to live for myself and my neighbors.
Hi. My name is Bob Gibbler. I've been a lifelong resident of Middletown. The only move I've ever made in my life was I was born and grew up at the lower end of town, and I moved to the upper end of town. That's the farthest. So I've also worked on the Middletown Police Department. I put in 40 years of service with them. Prior to that, I put in 2 years in the communications center, which they just disbanded. So total experience in the borough has been like 42 years, almost 42 years. And I feel that with my experience as the police, that I know the operations of the police department, what has to be done, and of course I got along with all the guys and everything, and I feel that with my experience on the police department and being in the borough, that I would be a good candidate for mayor. And of course, I only moved from one end of town to the other, so I'm here for the duration.
Thank you. Okay, the first question's for Jim. Middletown's about to enter the state's early intervention program due to its continuing financial problems. Do you agree with the current borough's assessment of Middletown's financial status? What are the positives and negatives for Middletown going into an early intervention program, and what would be your expectations?
Thank you. Early intervention program. Upon moving to Middletown, I think just in speaking with neighbors and local residents, it became evident that there is some type of problem here in town with regard to its financial stability. That didn't come as a surprise to me, because speak to neighboring municipalities. There are many municipalities across this entire country which are experiencing financial difficulty. So that being said, I'm not surprised if there is a financial problem. In terms of the early intervention program, one of the things that I've said from the beginning in speaking with the constituents and giving speeches is that I would like to see a little bit more transparency from our local government in terms of how do they come up with the numbers, and how do we know that those numbers are accurate. I can't stand here honestly and tell you today whether or not the numbers presented by the consultants that were hired are accurate, because I have not reviewed that paperwork. As an attorney in my day-to-day practice, that's what I've been trained to do. I've been trained to look at both sides and come to the middle ground based on the information that's provided to me and based on the facts that are provided to me. I'm not privy to that information right now. So do I think there's a problem? Yes. Do I know if it's as severe as it's proclaimed to be? That I can't tell you. In terms of the positives and negatives of entering into the early intervention program, if the problem is as severe as it has been stated, obviously the early intervention program is a way to nip the problem in the bud before we end up in a position that we can't dig ourselves out of. If it's not as bad as what the current council has said it is, then we're going down the wrong path, and perhaps there's other avenues to pursue. But all I can tell you now is that I do believe there is some issue, there's some financial difficulty, and as mayor, that would be my goal, is to look at the information provided to me, come back to you as the voice of the people, and make sure you understand from an objective standpoint what the truth is behind those numbers.
Thank you.
On that issue, I take a stand, as Bob Reed did. I'm against entering the early intervention plan without, again, seeing firsthand the facts and figures. And again, certainly I know that from working there over the years, the borough's been fast. We've had good service that we paid for and everything, and certainly with the budget cuts, everything had to be cut. Do I think that the financial status is as bad as they make out? I don't believe it. It's been, the workforce has been cut by 50%. And we don't have the services now that we had before. So, and the other parts of that problem, I should say, is that if we are in a financial crisis and we need an early intervention program, again, why are we spending money buying flood homes? Why are we doing fireworks? Why are we buying businesses or buildings for the Historical Society, buying fire truck or chief's vehicles for the fire department? If we're in such a financial crisis, why are we doing this? Which is what leads me to believe that there is not that much of a financial crisis.
Okay, Jim, 30 seconds if you'd like to respond.
Sure. As Mr. Gibler said, I think in the past, Middletown has been fat. And that's why I think there could possibly be the financial crisis that's been presented to us. If we live with those services over and above our means for many years, then perhaps that's why we're seeing the outcome of that now. Again, need to see the paperwork to confirm it, but I certainly think that's a possibility based on the way that we have been in the past. In terms of buying Historical Society properties, it's my understanding from the most recent council meeting that there were bonds taken out by prior councils, and those bonds had an interest rate. And over the course of the years, if you didn't expend that money, now the interest rates increase. So it's my understanding that that money was being spent to prevent further problems by having the interest rate increase, resulting in the borough having to pay back more money in the future. Again, I preface all of this by saying, this is what's been presented. As mayor of Middletown, who's ever elected needs to go in with a level head, review the paperwork. I think I have the knowledge to do that, serving as an attorney in Harrisburg, and come up with an objective plan as to whether or not we are proceeding down the right path.
Okay, Mr. Gibler, 30 seconds if you need it.
To set the record straight, I'm not against the Historical Society, but we're buying a building for the Historical Society and spending $90,000, and it's from that fund. Could that fund not have improved something within the borough for the borough itself? By all means, I think it was a good investment, so I'm not against it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to the third question, which will go first to Mr. Gibler. What's your position on the possible sale of the borough's water and sewer systems, which is something that's been suggested by consultants' report?
Okay, on that, I would be totally against selling the water and sewage department. Has been stated before that the water and sewer that we have in this town is a benefit to us. It's an asset. And I can't see selling off assets if we're not in the financial state that they say we're in. There would be no reason. And if you sell off the assets, the only possible option you have of having any service in the borough would be to raise the taxes. I feel that the school board has taken care of that problem for us with building a new high school. So I don't think it's a good idea. We would have no way then, I mean, people would be taxed out of the town.
Kurt.
Thank you. This is one that Bob and I may agree on. I see the water and sewer systems as assets as well, and the way I view it is, if right now you're getting a benefit from those systems, once you sell it, you get an instant benefit by selling it, but then you lose the long-term benefit by having it ever present in the community. So at this point, without having, all of our questions are kind of piggybacking on the bigger issues that we see, which is, he and I have not been privy to this paperwork. So in analyzing it from the knowledge that I have right now, I would say I would be against it, because you would get the instant benefit, but not the long-term benefit.
Anything more from either of you? Okay. Next, a long-winded question that starts with Jim. Recently, the borough cut its electric costs, rates, and lowered its deficit. This included transferring the police dispatching services to the county 911 system, moving the library toward an independent nonprofit entity with reduced funding from the borough. It also included the consolidation of the former water, electric, sewer, and highway departments in an effort to streamline the borough's operation, created a more efficient delivery services in the process, relocated the police department due to a series of labor disputes and building code complaints to a more modern facility. In addition, code enforcement has now been contracted out to a firm called Commonwealth Codes, Inc., which is in Manheim. Do you agree with these decisions? You don't have to address every one of them. You can pick and choose. If not, what would you propose?
I'm taking notes on your question. First, the 911 system. It's my understanding that a lot of municipalities have switched to the countywide 911 system. I think that's a way to, it's better monitoring in terms of, I understand that in our local community, it was good when you had a home-based system, you could walk in at any time, speak to someone, but now when it's countywide, every single municipality will be on an even playing field. In terms of the regulations of how that system is put forth, they'll be even across all counties. And I think that when you have an operating system, such as a 911 system, across all counties that doesn't differ. If we're operating differently in Middletown than the rest of the communities, we could run into hiccups, we could run into problems. If it's a uniform system, I feel that you get better response time, I feel that you would get better response to the citizens, and I think it's a way to keep everything in check in terms of our overall police system. The library, I'm trying to go quickly to hit on your points. The library was a choice that was made. They were defunded, and initially that caused a lot of grief in the borough. I have been to the library board meetings, and I've spoken to the board members, and at this point they are comfortable where they're at, and they think that they are self-sustaining, and I think they're looking forward to the future. They have tons of fundraising ideas. I have given them some myself. I've also pledged that if I'm elected mayor, the stipend that I receive for that 4-year term will be automatically donated back to the community. I won't keep a penny of it. And part of that money will be going back to the library to help sustain it. Now, I understand it's not $1 million, but any penny that goes back to that library or back to a nonprofit in town is more money than they had without me doing that. So, in terms of library, I think that change has been beneficial. They're not complaining. They said they're comfortable where they're at, and it has saved us money. That's my position in terms of the library. The police department, locating to a new facility. I've taken the tour of the facility. I think it's state-of-the-art. It was not designed as a police facility. I will give you that. However, I think in comparison to where the police were to where the police are now, I do think it's an upgrade. I spoke with the chief when I took the tour, and the holding cells that they've created, the interrogation rooms, the evidence cells, the technology in terms of computers and Wi-Fi and everything that they have there is just leaps and bounds better than what was in the current Borough Hall, which is an old building, and while I appreciate historic buildings, I have a strong interest in them, it just, from what I've heard, was not making the cut. So I think that the move to the new police station was a good one. I do, however, disagree with how the decision was made. There was a vote given at a council meeting, and some of the members did not have a chance to review the paperwork prior to the move to determine if they agreed with it, and the vote was a little rushed in my opinion. So while I ultimately agree with the move, I would have liked to see the process elongated to allow everybody to make an informed decision, including every council member sitting on the board.
Okay, I think let's go to Mr. Giffler for
Sure.
a few minutes, and then we get back to you with some more of these.
Okay, the 911 system, I won't fault them in any way. They're a super agency, and the move, they've been talking about moving and doing with the comm center since I was there. I know it had to eventually come. So, I mean, it was a good move, but in doing so, they took away the personal contact that the citizens of town had with their police and the dispatch center. Also, at the same time, they defunded the library. The people reused, all that stuff. Everything was located right around there. So, like I say, I knew that eventually we were going to use comm center. I believe we were always prepared for that. But losing the comm center and the library defunding in the same amount, in the same period of time, I thought was taking too much away from people. I'd rather even seen the library stay funded, but, as Jim had said, now that they're in a comfortable position, I'm fine with that. Moving to the police department, I felt was done in anger because the police filed grievances about the generators and being gassed out. They spent $290,000 to renovate the new building, which is quite nice, but it's still not a functioning police department as it was in the old building. The old building was built as a police station. Structurally, that building is fine, and I believe that moving the generators outside and making some repairs to that building would have accommodated the police much better than where they're at. And I feel that in the downtown location, it's more accessible to the public. So I disagree with the police group.